summertime, but somebody's freaking cold.
Hello.
Man, Mike Terali coming to us from a walk-in clinic somewhere in the metropolis that is downtown Nashville. Current wait time, 75 minutes. So being that we like to stay on schedule and provide as much consistency as we can, regardless of our personal situations, today, in fact, is May 14th, 2018. And this is the, albeit halfway sick, Crushing Iron Triathlon podcast. Brought to you by Theraflu and sponsored to you again by Claritin.
Wow, that was a hell of an intro.
I got you, man. Hey, sometimes you got to pick up the slack for me. Sometimes I got to pick it up for you.
Yeah. So thanks for taking over right there.
You're welcome.
Theraflu's not sponsoring this cast, by the way. I am all in on 100% vegetable, organic vegetable juice and ginger. Man, there is nothing quite as sexy as being in 95-degree weather with allergies and a summer cold and staring at a foot-long grass to mow your lawn. You know that feeling when you're kind of tired, you have allergies, and... Did I lose you?
No, I was. You said and I'm sitting here on the edge of my chair.
I can't even
waiting for you to drop the bomb. But I mean, if you're
there's no bomb, but you know how you feel.
Yeah, man, I've been there. Post Disney, man, I was tired and ravaged and with pollen and ragweed and fresh grass clippings galore. It can shelve you, and so I've had to take drastic measures.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you know, man, I've been there.
Yeah, I didn't know how severe it was. Severe enough, I'll tell you.
Severe. Yeah, well, yours sounds severe enough. I hit it a little early this year on the old Claritin because I remember last year when we moved back from Kansas City, there's not much green there. And I got hit like a ton of bricks.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
I moved back because at that point I was still trying to train for Leadville, so I was finding my way in Percy Warner Park a couple days a week, and you might as well just like bathe in pollen at Percy Warner and all the other allergen pollutants that are in the air. I mean, it was just like I could have just probably ponied up to my desk and snorted a straight yellow line of pollen off the edge of my counter and been just the same. So I don't do that anymore. So I pop on the Claritin, trying to stay ahead of the game, and it's worked out well so far.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I just think this is, Friday I started feeling my throat get a little itch in it, and I was like, Jesus, are you kidding?
Mm-hmm.
This is like, I'm trying to be optimistic and think of it in terms of like, all right, you've been working hard. Just back it down and up the nutritional values and rest, and it'll pan out. And I think it's the race is Sunday, and I'm sitting here Monday, kind of feeling like I'm breaking through. I'm gonna go to get some garlic later and start chewing on garlic cloves. So don't be around me. The next couple of days. Yeah, I'm going all in, man. I'm voodoo. Sure. This is about voodoo now.
It sounds voodoo. So if you're kind of one of those. If you're one of the, I'll just say, if you're like one of those weird people that likes to give a hug and give the old kiss on the side of the cheeks, A, I don't roll that way, so don't do it to me in Chattanooga. B, if Mike's going to be chomping on garlic cloves, maybe that's the reason he's doing it anyway. But you may want to keep your distance.
Well, garlic is like one of those things. Sometimes it takes a while to get used to the smell, but once you get there, you can't get enough.
That's true. I love me a little minced garlic in pretty much every meal too.
I don't know about garlic breath, but whatever.
Yeah, it's it is, but it is. And when you're triathlon's hottest bachelor like Mike Terali, you got to do things to fend off the swarms of triathlon singles that might be in Chattanooga over the weekend.
It's like what was that Seinfeld the Kramer one when he had the Kavorkia?
Yeah.
You got to do whatever you can to keep them away.
That's right, man. You just got to do it.
Oh, man. That is pretty damn ripe right there.
It is.
I mean, it is the week of the race, and, I'm sure a lot of people deal with either emotional or physical kind of like scares this week. And I don't know. you told me the other day, quit overthinking stuff, and I think I do that for sure. But I think that almost leads to a sometimes more powerful discharge when you're sick. I was looking for a different word, but that was all I had.
Yeah, that was a heavy word.
But you know what I mean, though? Like, if you're kind of, like, stewing on things, and it's like, because my head is, like, draining right now.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I think you just got to air it out and be open and quit overthinking.
Have you thought about hitting the steam room up? That might help you with this overthinking issue.
Oh, I'm thinking.
Getting that stuff
I'm
out.
thinking about it. But there's also kind of, no. Yeah, I'm actually, I feel like a lot better today than I did yesterday.
That's good.
Yeah, and I actually rode. I was kind of like doing a stubborn ride yesterday. You know, the stubborn ride when you're like, screw this, I'm not getting sick.
This is not happening.
Nope. So I went out there with just some water and kind of went real slow, and I just tried to sweat, and I tried not to overdo it, but that may or may not have helped. I don't know what the.
Yeah, I've generally got that, that rule of. If it's above the neck, you can usually still get away with it, in terms of like being sick. If it's below the neck or, below the chin, whatever, I always tell athletes to then it's time to kind of tone it down because you really don't want anything viral in the chest. But, I mean, honestly, if it's just allergies, you're not sick.
Mine's not, though. I don't.
Yeah, yours doesn't sound like it. But, I got to say you got to be careful, and I think a couple bursts here and there are kind of good. But listen, the last thing you want to do is overextend your system. Because I remember, I don't know if you remember this stuff, but I remember not last year. It seems like forever ago. When you and I did Wisconsin, I came down with a cold like the week before, and dude, I was pounding juice like nobody's business.
Mm-hmm.
Juice and meds and anything I could leading up to the race. But hey, it's a cold. It's not ideal, but it's you just gotta do the best you can. And like you said, don't overthink it.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta be honest, man. I'm a little guilty of that. I think on both ends sometimes. And I was definitely so. I mean, as you all know that. Most of you probably do that. I am a coach, and so. And if you didn't, and you're listening now, and you already know this is the Crushing Iron Triathlon podcast, I am the coach, Mr. Robbie, and that is Mike Chirali, the color commentator, age group athlete extraordinaire, and eligible triathlon bachelor. But one of the hey man, you gave me the reins to take over the show, so you can edit out what you need to.
Yeah, I can, but
I've got one of my biggest responsibilities, obviously, as a coach is not just to get athletes prepared for a race, but also where does that race fit in the middle of their season, because every race is different. Is it just another day? Sure. And do we need to approach it with like a gigantic amount of like, enormous pressure that today is somehow going to be different than every other day? We do, but we don't have to. But in terms of like looking at an athlete's overall season and where they are and how training is going, how life is going, you approach some races differently. Like if an athlete is coming in Chattanooga 70.3 and it's not their gigantic race, their biggest race of the year, we're not about to throw out all of our cards on the table. We're not about to try and push the envelope as far as we can and dig a hole and end up not getting any information back, or digging a hole so big and going so hard in the race that it takes such a long time to recover based on where the current fitness is. And one of the things that, while I love and care about every single one of my athletes, sometimes you need to find a happy balance between allowing and trusting them to do what they know and what they believe they can do, and then also guiding them along the way. And so when I have a lot of athletes doing Chattanooga 70.3. I had those that train with power, I give them a power guidelines, usually just an average power number for average power, and then also a normalized power, kind of like a ceiling. Like, I don't want you to go over this. And so I gave those out over this last weekend, or Friday, I think it was. I gave those out to my athletes and gave them the numbers I wanted them to shoot for and explain how I got it. And I had one athlete specifically who I'm very, very close to, have been coaching for just over a year now, so we've been together for quite a while. And we were kind of talking back and forth because he was anticipating a lot higher number, and was worried that, he wouldn't be leaving it all out there on the course if he went a little bit lower. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of texted back and forth, and I always even race will, hey, I got to give it to the athlete. If you think you got more in it, especially on a day, then you roll with it. Race day is like you're the pilot. I'm your goose, you're Maverick. I'm the guy sitting in the booth on the battleship, and you're doing flyovers. It's your call. And the more I got to think about it, this athlete has had a really, really, really rough past, I don't know, 8 to 12 weeks, just kind of motivationally and emotionally and fitness-wise. And this is something I think coaches should always do, especially when they care about their athletes. And so I ended up actually writing this athlete a different email, and I'll go ahead and read it. And I said, so I was thinking a bit about your game plan and doing some introspective on my approach, specifically in regards to you and your situation. I care about each athlete tremendously, your success, your daily life, the good and the bad. So I would be lying if I said that I might be playing it too careful with you on this one. With the amount of stress you seem to have been under the last few months, the struggles with motivation, etc., I know you've had a rough go of it. Something we also haven't really gone through as a coach and athlete combo yet. This athlete and I basically had, I think, 4 races together, and this athlete has done just exceptional in every single race. Very cerebral and outstanding athlete. And to say, past races, I've pretty much dialed you into what I hoped for would be the perfect game plan. With no second thoughts, I might be setting you up for anything but a really solid plan to execute. So the part of me that texted you your game plan yesterday was admittedly playing it a little bit safe. Really wanting to ensure you had a great experience and opportunity to run like hell and finish really, really, really strong to set you up hungry and motivated for the rest of the year and feeling great. But that's not my job. It is, but it isn't really in a way. You're responsible for that, and you have the ability to take ownership of that. You've been through some tough shit, so I know you can handle it. So what I want for you the most is to have fun and race with fire. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you. Have a great weekend to yourself and crush it. Hanging out with good friends next weekend will be great. It's not my job to protect you. It's my job to set you up to race your best into your best ability. So on that note, and I gave this athlete his different numbers, and I said, you're capable of nailing all of those. So while I won't apologize for caring too much, I will apologize for letting that get in the way of letting you possibly be your best, even with the risk and all, because that's why we do it. And
fine line, man.
It's a very, very, very fine line. And this athlete emailed back and was like, hey, obviously I totally get it. And so it's just one of those things. And I think that sometimes we also forget, like we kind of talked about in the last podcast, like, there's nothing wrong with taking risks. And there's this feeling of strength that even if you fail, and this I'll read just to kind of quote just from, I won't read the rest of it, but this athlete's quotes back to me said, you know this because of the shit you've been through as well. I believe it makes us stronger and it makes us less afraid to fail. And I think that's so much sometimes that we forget that, is that even if we risk and we quote unquote don't succeed, there is still strength to be gained by having the courage to take a risk And while I'm not a huge fan of always taking risks, especially in races, but I would say that, at some point, every athlete in some race should take a risk and take a flyer. And I believe it takes a ton, loads of courage, whether it's signing up for a race that you may or may not be ready for, whether it's deciding to just really, really go for it and push ourselves to a different limit and just see what we're capable of, and let our mind and our body do the work, let it tell the story, let it be the actual decision maker on the day, instead of marrying yourself to your watch. Which, again, I'm not saying this is how you should do it every race, but I think on occasion there is something to be learned from doing races where you decide, you know what, I'm not afraid to fail. And I think there's a freeing kind of feeling about that, and not overthinking it, and not overanalyzing it, and not kind of being, which I think sometimes we can do, is being paralyzed by a number. And and I've said this before. I think the last podcast specifically, I said, you should ride with power, but not always by power. And kind of what I mean by that is, like, if I'm your coach and I give you a number, let's say it's like 220 for race day, but you feel incredible, then that 220 no longer needs to be your ceiling. That 220, you need to be able to make the decision and feel empowered enough to make that decision and that goes in both directions. I'm not feeling 220. My body's saying no, 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 no. Mm-hmm. So let's back it down to 210 and make that decision on the fly. Or, I don't think I've ever felt this good. Because I think we tend to forget that sometimes too. That happens to us in training as well. We go out and have these runs or these rides and swims where we're like, I don't know what happened, but I feel like I just embodied like a different athlete. Yeah. And you're able to just like do something you had no idea you were capable of. Well, just like we say that you shouldn't, that race day is no different. You could wake up and feel like $1 million. You could wake up and feel like crap. It's that feeling in that having that confidence to ultimately trust and just own it yourself and say, you know what, today, and if this is the case, and let's hope that it is for everyone, I feel incredible today. Let me just see how incredible this is. And to have because there is a risk in that. You're not playing it safe. And so I just think there's a tremendous amount of courage that people and athletes should have in order to make that jump. And I think that you can only make it when you do it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that.
Well, I'm on board.
You're on board. Good to know.
I'm a risk taker. But yeah, it's I was thinking the other day, overthinking the other day. No, like the thought actually crossed my mind. I've really been. I went to the pool. I forgot my watch, and it may have been the best thing that happened right at that moment, because I was swimming without a watch. For me, it kind of started. I was kind of a little freer for some reason. I'm a kind of a psychological mess sometimes like that, but I think a lot of us are. Kind of like. But anyway, so towards the end, right at the end, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to swim a couple hundreds. How I was just doing them, because I had no idea how fast I was swimming. And I was just trying to build up a little thing. So I just stopped. I looked at the wall and the wall clock, and I just went down and did a quick 100. And I was like, boy, that felt pretty good. And it was like faster than I thought I had been swimming for sure. And I did it again, and I was finding this like super relaxed thing. And it was like right where I would love to be in a race. This was after quite about 1,500 to 1,600 and straight. And so anyway, long story short, I was thinking about not wearing a watch at all. I've been thinking about that ever since you kind of didn't go by watch at Texas. And, like you had that, you're just talking about power, and for people like me that don't race with power, I have to be in tune with little other things, right? So I kind of crossed my mind that, I wasn't actually going to quote unquote race this race, but even though I'm going to race it, but at least until the end, you talk about, getting to the end and then the race is at the end when you run like hell, if you can.
If you can, yep.
You know what I mean? So when I'm, for example, when I'm, in the pool or in the water and trying to keep my breath under control and just be relaxed and be steady, it's not always easy because it's a race and there's a lot of variables and the whole thing's way different than being in a lane by yourself and that sort of stuff. But, normally if you can kind of be consistent, be solid with your stroke and relaxed, your swim's going to be pretty good if you're up to that, whatever. So, but on the bike, without a power meter and, how, basically you're saying, your effort should be a little lower, essentially, right? So I have to be able to read that. And the way I read that usually is like how my quads feel. Like if I'm rolling and my quads start getting I'm real sensitive to even the littlest of like burn.
Yeah.
And you know how you get when you go up a hill, right?
Oh yeah, I know this.
Well, everybody knows, but I'm just sort of like putting it in a context of what happens after that. As you know, once you go up something like a real steep hill on the course, and it might be earlier in the ride, that could really get to you later, right? So, so I just kind of keep an eye on those sorts of things. So I was thinking to myself, the best way for me to not get those burning quad sensations is to not overdo it early, because like if I'm not warmed up, I start getting them a lot easier. You know what I mean? So it comes back to my thing about easing into races, starting under control, not trying to win the race in the first 10 miles of the bike, or the first, if you're swimming, I guess that's different. Sometimes you got to get out and you want to do it, but I don't know. I'm just trying to think here, like, about approaching this race with this idea that I don't want to get done and just hate the fact that I killed myself and I'm gonna slow up my whole season.
Yeah.
So I think that in a long-winded way, that's kind of what you're telling your athletes is like, just make sure that you feel, like really good. You know what I mean? It's one thing to feel pretty good the race morning, but that stuff can change,
Yeah, I mean, it's also like, and that's part of the coach. Like this was the only athlete that I gave a plan to that had that kind of deviation, because you have to take into account everything else. Like as great as it would be, and that's why like maybe I give them too hard of a time, but coaches that are only about numbers, that only tells like a fourth of the story. And like if you don't know where an athlete is mentally and emotionally, then honestly, like numbers don't mean anything. Like if they're putting up great numbers, but they're not mentally and emotionally like ready to rock, then that's something you probably should address. And then vice versa, and so I think that while this athlete in that particular case, the other athletes that I dealt with based on where they are in their season and where they are mentally and emotionally and combined with physically, some of them are a little, they're not careful. Some of them are a little more calculated and some of them are a little more aggressive. You can't just use in my opinion, there is no perfect percentage for each athlete to give for where they need to perform on race day. And ultimately they have to know that, listen, like once the gun goes off, it's all you.
Yeah.
Like you're the one making all the decisions. You're the one making all, everything that you need to go on race day. It's all you. You're by yourself. You can't text me. You can't call me. Nothing. Now, you may see me on the course on this one, but we're not going to be talking because I probably won't be able to breathe. But I think you have to know where an athlete is mentally and emotionally. And while you don't need to play it safe, like for somebody like you, in your situation, yeah, you don't want to go all out and then have it be a clunker and then feel defeated and dig yourself a huge hole.
Right.
And so that's why everybody's different. Like this is your first race of the year. And so take from me from example, like this is my second one. It's I already had a race, had about a little over a month in between, and on this one I'm racing with no power display on my bike. I'm actually gonna ride by feel and see what I can do, which is a little bit of a risk. I could blow up, I could not, but I really just want to push it and see. And while that may sound like a risk, especially on a day, like this isn't my biggest race of the year, but I still want to risk a little bit of that controlled feeling that sometimes I have in a race. Like racing is, and it's hard to explain. You cannot feel like you're being caged in and race at the same time. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like, if I give you,
it does, and I think that's what you want to figure out, right?
I want to
figure out, like, hey, am I holding myself back?
Yes, because I'm not convinced that I didn't. While I feel like I executed fairly well at Texas, I can't help but think that I left a little bit out there on the bike, and I'm not 100% sure that I actually totally nailed my nutrition. So I've been still trying to dial in and be even more diligent on my nutrition and my hourly intake, and the fact that I was able to ride so well and so much harder the last half of that ride. I don't know. I feel like I got a little bit more, and I'd like to know if I do or not. And this is a great race for me to do it. My biggest race of the year is Ohio, which is in 100 or 80 days, and I figure what the hell? Like I'm gonna swim, and I'm gonna ride and feel like I'm racing. I don't want to ride, and while I think that you need to be smart, obviously, and you can't be going like, I'm not talking about like going all out, but I'm saying when I get on my bike, I don't want to feel like there's a governor and an auto cruise on, and then all of a sudden you get off your bike and now it's time to race. Like I think you have to start an event and a race with the mentality of I'm going to race this and I'm going to go after it. Mm-hmm. And if I bike a little bit more than I probably should and my run ends up being just like, a slugfest, then it's a slugfest. But at least I want to feel like I figured something out, else out. Because I feel like I learned a lot at Texas, and I feel like I can learn a lot at this one. And it's not always about learning the same thing. It's about pushing yourself. And if you ever want to figure out if you can even get to a different level, or you want to get to another level, and you want to be able to race in a big competitive, some days you just got to go out there and you just got to decide to go figure it out or not. And if you end up coming up a little bit short that day, you might, but you're going to learn a ton. See, you can't ride that hard yet, but look, you're close. Mm-hmm. And you might be paying for it, but at the end of the day, you don't want to end the race and think woulda, coulda, shoulda, didn't. You want to think nailed it, or you want to think, God, that was all I had. I might not have executed it well enough. I might have toasted it a little bit on the bike, but man, did I give it hell today, and I let it rip. And then you learn a lot versus basically being paralyzed into a plan that may or may not prevent you to do that. And like what I'm saying, and I want to make this very clear, I'm not saying this is something you should do every race. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying you should do it for this race or your next race or in 3 races, but I am saying that there is a time and a place. And I talk to different athletes that I don't work with, and everybody wants to peak at a different certain time of the year. Based on when their biggest race is. And so a lot of athletes probably come into this race not fully tapered with a big load and probably heavy legs, and they'll be going after it, and they're using it, you've heard this term, probably kind of racing themselves into shape. Mm-hmm. There is no better way than to get into shape than to race your way into shape sometimes. And sometimes you just got to get after it. And so, again, like I guess in short, while maybe it's not taking a risk. Maybe it's just testing the waters of what it feels like to race. and not be so caught up in the perfect calculated day, just like you don't want to be caught up in the perfect calculated training run where you go out and you say, I'm going to run 8:30s today no matter what.
Yeah.
And you're running 8:30s and you're staring at your watch every quarter of a mile and you're thinking, oh, I shouldn't be going 7:30s. I got to slow down even if it feels great. What the hell? Like that's the perfect like segue from training to racing is like, don't ever tell me that. Like if you're feeling like it's zone 2 and you're going 7:30s, then let's ride out them 7:30s. Don't slow it down because you don't think you're supposed to be that fast. Whoever says that?
Yeah,
so the same thing as in racing. When it comes to these, and do I think everybody's ready for it or needs to do it? No, but I think that sometimes you should.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, the thing with me is like I've done that. I think I just haven't been able to nail the run, and I think I'm a little confused usually about you probably don't I shouldn't feel that great when you finish a race, but more often than not it hurts.
It always hurts.
Yeah, it always hurts. So like at what level should it hurt? You know what I mean? Like if you're racing, I guess that's the differentiator is between if you're going out as a pro and you're trying to make money and make a living and this is what you do. I mean, you're going to fall down and puke sometimes probably.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if a lot of us really want to do that necessarily. But what number is that important that we get that we're willing to feel like that?
Yeah.
You said something the other day, and I think it was in our closed active athlete group, or you posted that power meter thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you're talking about the variances in power and how it really doesn't, make it's not a huge difference in the time, like you were saying. You were telling somebody.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting, and that's kind of how I sort of been looking at it from a feel perspective. Is like if I don't go out too hard and I maybe feel stronger towards the end and I want to push it or whatever. But I guess the point was maybe you can explain it a little bit, but essentially, is 2 minutes on the bike worth the risk?
No.
Okay.
I mean, because dude,
most likely
not. Let's do the numbers. So you got 2 minutes. That's 8 miles of 15-second differences per mile to give us 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
That, I mean, an over bike, you can get there quick. I mean, you can get there real quick. And most people would tell you if they over bike, then usually they're just not losing 15 seconds per minute mile.
Right.
They're losing losing like 30 or 45 or a minute. And so, like while I'm giving you, best case scenario, the more realistic, calculation is you race. I think that what the thing I did was you raced 11 watts harder over 2 hours and 20 minutes, for those 2 hours, and you saved 3 minutes and 11 seconds. Well, the fact is if you dug yourself a huge hole, you're probably going to be running 20 to 30 seconds slower. And so while that 3 minutes that you quote unquote saved is going to be eaten up in 7 to 8 miles. Easy. Mm-hmm. And then your last 5, whoa, buddy, you're going to be giving them back. You're going to be handing them back. And
especially in this heat, man. Especially
in the heat and for an unforgiving course, it's, and that's also a difference. Like if it was, and that's so much why, that's just why the sport's so complicatingly awesome is that if it was a cooler temp and a flatter course, or a flatter run, you'd probably get away with it because your overall cumulative run time is going to be less, and so you should be able to run harder for less time, but if it's going to be, and same goes for a harder bike course. While this isn't like the hardest bike course, it's not pancake flat either. And so a 220 watts might get you a 220 bike split on a flat race, but at Chattanooga, it's going to get you like a 228 or 230. So now you're already looking at 10 more minutes of solid effort at that level of exertion and energy expenditure. And then you hop on a run course to where it's also not flat and cool and shaded. It's going to be rolling and probably hot with, less than 50% shade. So that also takes into account. There's just so many different things that to keep in mind, in terms of this. And then it's like, oh, well, am I saving energy on the swim? And then can I put that towards the bike? Because the swim is, it may actually be below water temp wise, but it's more than likely still going to be wetsuit legal. And there may be some flow. So what if you save 4 or 5 minutes on the swim at an easier energy expenditure rate? Okay, well, I just saved 5 minutes of time and I did less work. Well, does that mean I can push harder on the bike? Or do I want to wait till I get to the run? Like, there's just so many play-by-plays you have to give yourself in decision. Like you talked about the other day, how on that run you did, you made like 50 decisions every other minute, in that run. Racing is just like magnified, because, and you should learn this in training, in that, and I tell my athletes this when they run a lot of like negative split long runs, is it allows you the opportunity to make a decision. Do I just keep it here and controlled? Or do I actually have it and I can push it? Either way you go is the right answer if you, regardless of pace, if you went with how you were feeling. Because some days a slower run is the best run. Some days a faster run is the best run. It's you don't want to go out and overcook yourself. So there's just a million decisions to be made, and you have to be confident in yourself and in your decision making and in your experience, and in what feeling do you want to have when you cross the finish line? Like, what is the most important feeling to you? Is it that I ran the perfect race but I still have a little bit in the tank? Or is it, good God, I gave it my all, I got nothing left, dude, I got nothing left?
Yeah.
Is that the feeling? And so there's a lot to be taken into consideration, and while I don't think everybody is necessarily ready to take the risk, or do they even need to risk a race? It's not even risking a race. It's like, running a plan, taking a risk, or racing a race. And there's all these things you can take into account, and I know we have a ton of people listening, so I'll focus on the ones that are doing, Chattanooga. So if you're doing it, make sure you have a good time, but don't be, regardless of what route you choose to go, don't be afraid, and own whatever one you want to own, and just go for it.
When you said that about the wetsuit and maybe some downstream, and you're like, okay, maybe I get 4 minutes off my normal swim here if I nail it, right? So then I started thinking, well, like, okay, well, like, all right, so you think you got a little in the bank there for whatever reason coming out of the water. And then I was thinking, well, what do you do? If I'm a strong cyclist and I feel like I can push myself a little more on the bike and rebound, do I kind of think about taking it there? But then I was like, as you're talking, I was like, I don't think it matters unless you have something left with 3 to 4 miles left in that run. What's the point?
Yeah.
I mean, that's really, that was like one of the first things I learned in triathlon, right? Is like the Ironman doesn't start till mile 18 of the run or whatever. So you're setting yourself up for that position. So I just took 4 miles and a half or whatever. I don't know if that's the accurate, but that really is it. Because like, how many times have you had more on the run? I mean, like, that just doesn't happen.
Ever. And I would love to know if somebody did.
Yeah. So I guess I answered my own question. It's like, you just got to still somehow, until you can figure it out where you get to mile 9 of the run and a half or whatever, 8 or 9, and then you feel like, all right, now I'm going to race.
Yep.
That's like should be the goal, right?
It should always be the goal.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, tinkering around on the bike and the swim and whatever. I mean, obviously, some people aren't going to want to do that necessarily or whatever. It's not easy, is my point. It's like, I don't know. No matter how, like, what, I don't know if I, like, if I go 17 miles an hour on the bike or 21, it's not going to matter to me, I don't think. It maybe matter a little. But, you know what I'm saying? It's like to pull all three of these sports together to that level where you can run that last 4 miles and go after it is you got to be in pretty solid mental, emotional, and physical shape.
Exactly. They all have to be clicking. Mm-hmm. They all have to be clicking.
Yeah, because it might be something as simple as like what you're talking about on the bike is like letting yourself go. Or, you talk about, oh, I'm going 7:30s. I can't do that, At that point, if you can flip your mental switch to say, just let it go, man, and run.
Mm-hmm. Just let it go.
I mean, I'm just,
Pop in that Frozen song. Let it go. I think that's the one. But yeah, you just let it go. Feel the flow. Let it go.
Yeah. I don't know.
Well, whatever you decide on race day and wherever you are racing, we wish you the best of luck. And let us know one way or the other. And obviously, if you're in Chattanooga, let us know. We'll be there. You'll see a lot of us on the course. I think we have just within the team alone that I coach 27 athletes on course. Make sure you say hi, smile, cheer, slap, high five. And obviously you'll see hopefully a lot of us around town on Friday and Saturday. So feel free to say hi and introduce yourself. I promise that Mike and I are both much, much nicer in person. Especially me, I hope.
Very approachable.
Very approachable. So say hi. I'd love to meet anyone and everyone, especially if you're listeners. We're very appreciative of you all. Again, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and leave us a review. They're super helpful to both Mike and I in our feedback, and then to the aspiring triathlete for finding the podcast. If you're going to be part of the conversation, you can always go to Crushing Iron Group on Facebook, and we'll let you in. And if you have any interest at all about training plans, I will have 1 or 2 spots opening at the end of this month for coaching. If you're interested in either one of those, you can email me directly, c26coach@gmail.com. And for all things Crushing Iron, the training plans, camp, swim camp, triathlon camp, swim analysis, the blog, gear, you name it, always go to our one-stop shop. That is crushingiron.com. And find us also in Chattanooga for your new C26 Crushing Iron signature line of T-shirts, hoodies, and long-sleeve tees.
I will have a lot of gear in my car as I drive down to Chattanooga. I'm still trying to figure out this process, but I will probably state a couple of time slots, maybe in the hotel lobby or something like that. I don't know, or in my room. I haven't figured it out, but end up in the room with the single. Although I am rooming with CC, I think. So
yeah, you know how he is.
He'll keep me under control.
Stuff. He's not. Yeah.
Can you get these people out of here?
Seriously, the race is in 82 hours.
Just put your shit in the bag and let's go.
Yeah. While Mike and I may be approachable, if you're within 48 hours of the race, CC is not very approachable. But other than that, he's like the nicest guy on the earth. So yeah, you can find. You'll find us. We'll be at the Holiday Inn. We'll figure something out. Make sure we get that information out to everyone. But that's it, man. Hope you feel better. Thanks for squeezing me in early before Kona's vet appointment.
No problem.
And I'll see you tomorrow at our place.
Yep, and join the closed Facebook group. Search Crushing Iron Group on Facebook. We'll let you in there. That's where a lot of these inside discussion jokes and stuff like that happen. So
yeah.
be a part of the.
Be a part of it.
Yeah. Okay. Good luck at the
man.
vet, man. I'll be back to the garlic. See ya.